Okay, I think we're live.
Yeah, I hope so.
Welcome to Startalk, the podcast. And back by popular demand, I have to tell you, I had a lot of comments last week on the guest, Marty Kramer, that's joined me. Marty was a tour manager for me for many, many years, and we're going to tell a few more stories like that. But a lot of people said we just couldn't get enough of that show, and we hear some more stories. And really excited to have Marty back on the show.
Thank you.
So
Really happy to
we're
be
on the
here.
Starwire YouTube channel, and today we've got a couple of different topics we want to talk about. Garnet will join us talking a bit about the Starwire token, but before we get to that, kind of want to give some background. The Starwire project all started by a need for that I saw in the industry to compensate people fairly for their intellectual property. I was part of another company, which was an entertainment company, and we noticed that there was a lot of people that were making films, making music, and they weren't getting their fair share of the royalties. They weren't getting recognized and paid for some of their distributed product. So there was a big need out there. And when I first discovered blockchain back in, I don't know, 2016, something like that, it suddenly the light went on and I went, I think I can see the answer to this problem. It's going to be a bit of a disruption to the industry, but at the same time, I think it'll be adopted by the youth and by the creators who really want to, make sure that they timestamp their creative work. And now that everything's like a digital asset, we have the opportunity now to really bake intellectual property right into the product. And we've been talking a lot about NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens and collectible items. And so we've entered this new sort of digital world of streaming, and just like we're doing tonight. And we have this overhanging problem of people not getting compensated properly and fairly for their work. So the Starwire motto has always been, when money moves, you get paid. And that's the technology that we're developing. So the token is the start of that because it gives voting power to our community. And it's also going to be used to be able to put into our wallets to be able to exchange for whatever currency wherever you are in the world. Whether it's a stable coin or fiat currency. So that's kind of the background of where it all started. We saw a problem, and Houston, the problem is massive. If we can come up with even something that helps a few people, it's going to be something magical. So we've developed what we call a smart contract builder, which is a simple way of putting a contract together, and you hit a button and it spits out the Solidity code. You don't need to have real extensive programming or anything like that. I like to compare it to what WordPress did for coding on websites. Our smart contract builder has done for putting contracts onto the blockchain. So with that said, that's a little background. And so I just want to talk about intellectual property and some of the stories of how people made mistakes along the way. And maybe some of you younger guys or gals that are listening to this could take some ideas away and try not to make some of the same mistakes. But anyway, right now I'd like to introduce our guest, Marty Kramer. Marty was a tour manager for Burton Cummings for 27 years, for Bachman Turner Overdrive, for Randy Bachman during the time that I played in the band for almost 2 decades. And he also did work with the Rolling Stones, with Ringo Starr. Too many names to mention, but welcome back to the show, Marty. How are you feeling tonight?
Oh, phenomenal. Everything's great. And yeah, very interesting. There are a lot of issues there, like you were talking about, regarding strange stories. You and I had the pleasure of interviewing 2 of the original members of CCR, Dougie Clifford and Stu. And
Stu Cook, yeah.
That's right. And they were gracious enough to tell us a lot about themselves and the band. We were both big fans. They reformed. They're doing great. They're touring as CCR Revisited, minus John, which is fine. John's out there doing his own thing. which is
So
also
let's back
fun.
up a little bit. John didn't play his songs for a long time.
That's right.
For what reason?
The reason was that they had a manager, and he was the guy who was called Mr. Greed. They wrote a song about him. Also, Zantz Can't Dance, Saul Zantz. Now, Zantz was the guy that defrauded them of all their royalties and publishing and everything like that. So they figured, look, we're not getting paid. Zantz is getting paid. So we'll do a bunch of other stuff until it got to a point, a turning point, where it didn't really make sense. You had to come to some kind of thing. Push comes to shove, legality. Zantz even sued Fogarty for defamation because the song was about a pig who couldn't dance, but it'll take your money. So I thought that was. And then
well, at first he was sued by Fantasy Records because he was the songs on Centerfield.
Right.
Old Man Down the Road sounded too much like the other song, and he said it sued him because it sounded too much like himself. If you can figure that one out.
Exactly. Well, he had Rock and Roll Girls, and he had My Toot Toot. They were a very versatile band. At one point, when we were out with you on the road, we opened for CCR, and remember Elliot Easton from the Cars was playing lead guitar, and you went into the dressing room and you were talking to the guys there for a good half hour, 45 minutes to the original guys, and we were all backstage in the Dakotas somewhere at a casino. And
it was outdoor, I think.
It was outdoor, definitely outdoor
casino
center, an outdoor stage and everything. It was just amazing to see those guys and us guys interacting at that time. And the same when we did the Doobie Brothers and you were there, and first generation, second generation children of the Bachman clan and everything on stage with us, drumming, playing bass. It was just unreal to see those transitions. But
a lot of fun. But I remember both Stu and Doug Clifford, who's called Cosmo. He told me, Colin, call me Cosmo.
Call me Cosmo, yeah.
And he would say, whatever you do, what's your advice to anybody starting in the music business? And he said, don't sign anything.
That's right. And the next thing that he said that came out immediately after that, get a good lawyer.
That's right. I remember that now. Those are the two things he said.
The two things he said when Colin asked if anybody, did you have any advice for the youth of today, coming up bands and that? And those were the exact two answers he gave us on the Colin and Marty Let's Talk Rock backstage at the casino with CCR.
So who's this?
Oh, Bo Diddley, my all-time favorite. You must have a story. You probably have a story about Bo.
Bo Diddley. I got to play with Bo a couple of times.
Yeah. Where'd you play? Where did you play?
We were at the Town Pump in Vancouver, and he never traveled.
What year?
He never traveled with a band.
What year?
I don't remember. Then early 2000s, late 90s, maybe.
20 years ago today, folks.
Yeah, I don't know. But I can't remember. But he never traveled with a band. He just asked the promoter to put him together with a drummer, a bass player, a piano player, everybody, and we would all show up. And I said to Bo when we were about to do sound check, I said, Bo, what songs are we going to be playing tonight? Because I went out and bought a CD and it had 32 songs on it. And he says, we're going to be playing some Bo Diddley songs. And that's all he said. And he never told anybody what he was going to start playing. He would just get on stage and start. He actually started on drums. He would sit down and play the drums. And then he would hand one of the sticks to the drummer and get him to do that. And then the second stick, and then he'd slide down and the drummer would keep the same beat. He'd walk over to the bass player and he would reach over and start to thump the bass player's bass. And the bass player would continue with that. And then he'd walk over to me and he would go, obviously he couldn't play piano. So anyways, we were talking
Job
after the
security.
show one night, and he was telling some stories about, growing up, and
Yeah.
one of the things that is very bitter on his heart is the fact that he got swindled out of a lot of his songs,
Right.
and I think he sold two of his biggest hits, "I'm a Man" and "Bo
Yeah.
Diddley." Um, I think I remember him saying for like $25 each, and he said,
Oh, I'm
"Well,
sure.
$25 back then in the '50s was still big
Right.
money for a couple of songs that can always write
Exactly.
another song." But those have really gone um, to the point where now his family is in an estate battle trying to get his catalog back, which is worth millions. But he
Right.
essentially died in a trailer park with no money and a big tax bill and all kinds of stuff. So it was really sad. And his story was really hit me right there that we need to figure out a way to solve some of these issues. And of course, a lot of those early artists were taken advantage of because they trusted the corporate lawyers or the managers. And
Oh, the
I'm sure
manager,
I'm
the
sure you
artist.
remember hanging out with some of them.
Oh yeah, I hung out with Irving Azoff from the Eagles. I was just looking through some passes and I saw the Eagles 1978 in Winnipeg with Irving Azoff. And a funny story there, they sold out the stadium to a packed house, 25,000 plus. I brought a crew down to work at that time. I was living in Winnipeg. And he says to me, do you have any experience with bands and that? And I say, oh yeah, Burton Cummings at that time, pre-Guess Who. He says, good, you're head of security. I'm head of
You.
security. I know from nothing. I don't even know who's in the band, but I'm the head of security. So just give me 1 minute, 1 second. I'll step out of frame, but I'll come back into frame and show you if there it is.
1978.
Eagles, and right on top, security.
There you go.
Fine.
And you're wearing a Rolling Stone shirt. That must have
Yeah.
been a.
That's a little bit later.
You buy that at a thrift store, or is that yours?
No. This is the original one from 1975. No, this is it. Svelte. Fits
Wow.
me. It fit me in 75. It fits me in 2021. I'm not out of shape. I'm in good shape. Mind's functioning and ready to rock with Let's Talk Rock. So having said that, I'll tell you something interesting about managers and their negotiating abilities. I was talking to Jagger and we were discussing some stuff about in Winnipeg backstage, and we were discussing some deals regarding publishing and successful wheeling and dealing. Just give me a minute. I just got to focus in here. I made a note and I want to read it out to you here. Yeah. So at that point, the Rolling Stones were co-managed by a guy by the name of Andrew Lou Goldham. And they thought that Alan Klein at the time was a good guy and trustworthy. But their manager negotiated the most unbelievable deal where they were originally getting $300,000. Now, this is the Rolling Stones. And he got it up to a guaranteed $2.6 million in those days. And that was more money than the Beatles were making. I thought that was an unbelievable fact for a young guy to be able to negotiate on that level and get that kind of money for that band. You know what I mean?
But Alan Klein also owned all the publishing for those songs. I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Jumpin' Jack Flash,
absolutely.
Paint It Black, Let's Spend
Yeah,
the
he
Night
called it
Together, all those.
Nanker and Felge, and they held the money. That's what they did. And Nanker was a face that Brian Jones used to make, and Felge was a nickname for a surname of a friend, a flat. He lived in a flat in England, and it was a friend of his. So it was a flatmate's name, Felge, Nanker and Felge. And there was rumor at times like the Glimmer Twins / Jagger Richards share the brackets, which we always talk about, and Nanker Felge were all in the same, meant the same thing. It was them, significant to them, but it doesn't matter, We can turn back the hands of time. Little Richard, for example, when he started on Regency, what did he get? He was a dishwasher in Macon, Georgia, and he was singing and playing and to offset his monies. And all of a sudden, he sells his whole catalog for $150. Then he doesn't do anything for 30, 40 years. He had all the greatest hits: Lucille, The Girl Can't Help It, Baby She's Got It, you name it, Good Golly Miss Molly, all of that stuff. Boney Maroney, everything. He had the best band. Nothing happens. He doesn't expose himself. He doesn't do anything. All of a sudden, he starts Great Gosh Almighty. He starts doing movies. His value goes 50,000 plus US dollars for him.
Now, you did a gig with him at
we did a gig together at the concert hall here at the Queen Elizabeth. And interestingly enough, it was the most unbelievable concert just to see him and see him do Great Gosh Almighty and some gospel stuff. But in my heart, I wanted to see rock and roll. And I think
the hits.
Yeah, I wanted to hear the hits. I wanted to hear him do them. So lo and behold, the show ends prematurely. It's supposed to be a 75-minute show. After 61 minutes, good night. And he starts walking off. Meanwhile, I'm the promoter's rep at the time, hired by the Arts Club to stage manage and look after the artistry and everything for this show. And it happens to be Little Richard. There's no way I can let this guy out of there, right? So I say to his manager, "Excuse me, can I see you? We still got about 15 minutes. He says, "But the man don't have nothing left. He's all out. He's out of gas." And I said, "Look, man, you've got to get him back out there, and he's got to do something. He can't go back out and sing the same songs over and over again. He had 1 million hits." I says, "Does the band know the songs?" The manager looks at me and he says, "Does the band know the songs? They've been waiting longer than I've been waiting and longer than you've been waiting to hear them." So I said, "Now's the time. Now's the time. Go over and tell him that the band wants to do a medley of his stuff because we're short of time." So he goes out there, tells the band leader who's on the other side of the stage what's going to happen. They know the stuff. We put it together. He comes out and he does 16 hits, one after the other, some in medley form, some in full form, brings the house down, Colin. Wow. The most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. Rock and roll of the highest, the best I've ever seen. Keyboard playing, vocalization, and that was at the Queen Elizabeth here in Vancouver, and that was way back in 1993. Rest his soul, Richard Penniman, the man himself. Golly Miss Molly.
Yeah. And I've played all those songs. We've toured as the Legends of Rock and Roll with
that's right. With Gary Moore.
With Gary Moore.
You play piano for him with the band, with the Legends Band, which you're the musical director on, and as always, put together a great show for all the artists. Live music will be back. It will be back. And when it is back, I'm sure both Colin and I will be back in it. But for now...
well, there was a few other stories, too. I want to recognize, Billy Joel had a big...
Well, Billy Joel had a thing, I think if I'm not mistaken, with Billy Joel, I made some notes, too. I've just got to review my notes. I always have a cheat sheet where I go to refresh, because you and I discuss the format. You just don't get on the air, folks, and start blabbering. You got to know what you're talking about, as well as 99 out of 100 times we were there. So that's even more validation than...
Well, while you're checking your notes, it reminded me of a story that I heard in Nashville.
Okay,
and Dolly Parton had written a song, and she had been approached by Colonel Tom Parker. Now, Colonel Tom Parker was the manager for Elvis Presley, and
that's right.
He was a bit of a carnival character, and I'm not saying he was the best for Elvis, but he did he did put him on the world stage, that's for sure. At least
True.
in the U.S., he never let Elvis travel outside of the country because Colonel Tom was actually wanted in his original home, the Netherlands or something like that, and he couldn't go
He was
back.
Dutch,
So
and he couldn't go back. And he told Elvis they were trying to rip him off, and he couldn't get enough money, and the venues were terrible. Consequently, that's why Elvis never played Europe. He did play Hawaii, of course, and that, which was brilliant.
So getting back to the story, Dolly Parton was approached by Colonel Tom. She had a song, and he said, "Oh, by the way, and if Elvis records your song, he's got to put his name on it too." And she said, "Elvis didn't write the song. I wrote the song. Why should he put his name on it?" And Colonel Tom says, "Elvis is the biggest selling artist in the world. You'd be crazy not to get him to record your song." I said, "I don't mind if Elvis records my song, but he's not putting his name on it because he didn't write it."
There you go.
She held strong to her guns, and Elvis never recorded that. And years later, it was the theme song for The Bodyguard that Whitney Houston sang, "I Will Always Love You." And that was the song, and she waited it out, and it was a bigger hit than it ever would have been with Elvis. So that's a really good story of sticking to your gut and your intuition and your principles. And Dolly is an exemplary role model in that respect. So
that's very true. She is. She's a great star, and
now even in the Bachman Cummings camp, there's been issues, and some of the guys within their band that some of them should have got songwriting credits and didn't.
Oh, I would think. I think that the original guys there, i.e. the Kurt Winters of the world, the Bill Wallaces of the world, the Donnie McDougals of the world. Donnie, both good friends with yourself and myself from Mother Tucker's Yellow Duck, and then a number of configurations of the Guess Who. He told me a very, very interesting story once on the road when we were touring with the Guess Who. He said to me that when they used to record Mother Tucker and at the band house by the Fraser Hotel here near the foot of the bridge going into Richmond, where I live, a guy came in, was hanging out, looking around, friend of the band kind of thing. And then one day they had all the band notes on this pad and everything. And then this guy was there, and then he's gone. And then they ended the rehearsal and the fooling around business and writing song session. They went to get this book. They couldn't find it. They couldn't find the notes. They couldn't find anything. And they panicked, of course. And like Donnie said, we looked everywhere. And then we didn't even dawn on us that it could have been this guy that took it because he was a so-called friend. And a couple years later, after they had released the songs, most of which were written down there by Donnie and the band, this guy had already, like you were talking about, registered the songs as himself being the writer and getting the publishing and getting the money. And a similar incident occurred with me with Chad Allen from the Guess Who, because Chad came to me once and said, "Look, I think that there's something wrong here with the record keeping by Quality Records, who they were on the label out of Winnipeg, and the Guess Who, and all the publishing and everything. It's all misconstrued. There's something wrong." So he said to me, "Would you undertake and look into it for me?" And I said, "Sure, Chad, anything." So I did. And I went down to the CRTC, and I went down to all these companies here that control all of that on the West Coast, started digging, and I found out, lo and behold, that there was a doctor by the name of Dr. Chad Allen, and they had mixed up the mailing addresses of the real Chad Allen, who's Alan Cobell, Chad Allen from the Guess Who, with this doctor. And probably for 7 to 10 years, this doctor was getting Chad Allen's royalties. Chad Allen was starving, and the doctor was getting a pittance from the record company and the publishing, but not saying boo. So I found out who it was. I called him up. I told him I represented Chad, that what's happened here. And at first he says, what are you talking about and all this? I said, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about the error that was made and how you got the checks whenever they came quarterly or monthly or however they came out annually then, whereby the artist didn't. So I said, in my opinion, it should be given back. And he was very good about it. And he said, you know, mistakes happen and everything. And I said, can we correct that? He says, absolutely, we'll correct it. So diplomacy, take a negative, make it a positive. Management skills, myself, manager, tour manager, band manager. So we corrected it. Chad got his money back.
That's fantastic, Marty. Way to go.
Yeah, and the right thing to do, Colin, is to phone back all the people that have the misinformation and stricken this gentleman from the records, which I told him I could have easily said, you'll take care of getting rid of all of that, right? And the answer would be, yeah, sure. And what's the stopping the guy from not continuing? So I said, you know what? Honesty, shoot from the hip. I phoned each and every one of the publishers and that and said, mistaken identity. I've had the conversation. I've got the compensation. And from this point on, everything has to be redone and sent to Chad Allen. And from that day on, which is probably now 12, 15 years ago, he gets the money call. And that's the way it should be.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's take some questions from anybody that wants to ask some questions. And we'll also
I like it when they come live and it's like try to stump us, but we can be stumped. There's no doubt. But we'll stump you before you'll stump us.
Well, it's hard to understand what, that we may have some young people out there and some people your age, some people my age. And so some of these names may not resonate with people, and others, they may go, whoa, I'd like to hear more about that. So it's always fun if we can get some feedback from the listeners to see what they're interested in.
Absolutely. And
let's have a look at some of those. You were showing me earlier some of those backstage passes, and
let's see what.
And those always trigger a memory or two.
Yeah, I told you the story about the Eagles and the security and how Irving Azov, the manager of MCA and eventually the manager of the Eagles, came to me and said, "You're a security." Well, to continue the story, none other than Joe Walsh appears in a drunken state out of a limousine. I don't know who the guy is. He's stumbling all over this red carpet down at the bottom. The band is up on the deck playing. He's to be announced very shortly. I know nothing. Irv knows everything. I know nothing. You got to remember, I'm patrolling behind stage. I know nothing of this. This guy shows up. He's stumbling all over. I don't think at the moment of questioning him in any way, shape, or form. All of a sudden, he decides he's got to urinate. Just as he decides he's got to urinate, Irving Azov up top, there was a deck about 10 stairs up, yells down, "Get Joe and bring him up." I don't know what he's talking about. Joe who? He doesn't say get Joe Walsh. Even if he did, I didn't know what Joe Walsh looked like. So here's this guy urinating.
Well, that's interesting because in those days when you just listened to albums, you didn't have videos. You didn't see what guys looked like.
No, unless there was a caricature of them on the cover or in the center, black and white sleeve, as they called it. And if you're minus the sleeve or they didn't put their face on a cover, you're 100% right. So the bottom line, there's a guy urinating. This guy's yelling, "Get Joe Walsh." I got to take care of business. I said to this other guy, this other security beside me, I says, "Could you please escort this gentleman down the side here and get him out of here?" And then in the same breath, I say, "And I've got to find this guy, Joe Walsh, this Joe guy, not Walsh because I didn't know the last name." So this guy yells, "I'm Joe. I'm Joe." I said, "You're Joe. What's your last name?" He says, "Joe Walsh." So I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "So what do you do?" He says, "I'm a guitarist and a singer." And he says, "I'm the guest of the Eagles tonight." I says, "Oh, that's who Irv wants." And he was so out of it, so drunk at the time, intoxicated, that he didn't realize. So we did a quick spin around. It was like exit stage left, turn him right around, right this way, sir, up the stairs, one behind him so he doesn't fall down, me in front of him, all the way up the stairs, turn him over to Irving. Irving puts him on stage, and he rocks, does Rocky Mountain High, and plays with him for a while.
Rocky
And that's
Mountain
my
Way, yeah.
that's my Eagles.
Big
That's
song.
my Eagles story and Joe Walsh together in 1978, folks. Fun.
What
fun,
was
fun.
Music West? What year was that?
That was
93?
music. It was Festival Express, and that was
Music
around.
91.
Well, Music 91 was here on the West Coast. I was the
Yeah.
production manager for Music 91. I did 225 shows that year for
Yeah.
the government. We did
That's the year I
everybody.
met Joe Walsh. We were
Yeah,
walking up the street together, and
yeah,
Tony Kay's asking, "Did you ever work with Phil Collins?"
yeah. Definitely worked with Phil Collins at BC Place. I have a set of skins and sticks from Chester Thompson, who was drumming, and Phil was down stage singing. He came here a few times. Actually, his wife lives here in Vancouver, and he's been here a number of times.
Didn't his son live on Salt Spring Island?
Yeah, could well be near where Randy used to live. Yeah, you're right, Colin. Very good
Yeah.
possibility. I agree with you.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's about all you can play because streaming,
Well,
you
that's
never know
great.
if they'll cancel that from YouTube.
But now you know what Joe Walsh looks like. You've seen a picture of him.
Yeah, very, very fun night I had with Joe Walsh walking up the middle of Granville Street at 11
Talented
o'clock
boy.
at night, trying to find another place that was open.
Yeah.
And he also played with Ringo too.
Oh, yeah, he's very, very good friends with Ringo. And there was one configuration. We had Clarence Clements, and we had, what's his name, Nils Lofgren. We had, it's all coming to take a minute in order, Mark Rivera from Billy Joel and sax. Ringo, we had three, not two, three drummers. We had Jim Keltner, Ringo, and Lee Von Helm from the band.
Wow.
That was the first tour I did. Three drummers. And Billy Preston and Rick Danko also. And Joe and Clarence Clements from Bruce Springsteen. You want to talk? Oh, Dr. John. Dr. John did a live version of Iko Iko that I recorded at the show. I was, what has he got there? Excuse me.
Grant says, did you ever play or work with Bad Company? So
yeah, you and I worked with Bad Company.
The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, it was the Dream Cruise in Detroit. And we were on the Chevrolet stage, I believe.
Right.
And that was amazing because I was a huge Paul Rogers and Bad Company fan at the time.
Right.
I remember sitting in the lobby and I was quite amazed at how short Paul Rogers was.
Right,
and because I'd never met him close up.
No.
But we had to do, I think, 2 shows a day, one in the mid-afternoon and then one at night. And I watched each show that Bad Company did. It was phenomenal and a lot of fun getting to meet and be on the same stage with those guys.
Who was it that we went and played with in Panama? Wasn't it Paul Rogers and Bachman, Randy's band when we went to Panama to shut the Panama Canal? It was him.
Yeah, that was just Paul Rogers by himself, not
That's
Bad
right.
Company.
But of Bad Company and us when we did that giant show there.
Remember we did that show in Chicago and they had to shut the stage and everything because Clinton was going by or something, the president.
Yeah, it was a taste of Chicago, and he was a celebrity chef, and they had set up a big thing way down. Unbeknownst to us, we were doing a sound check, and Colin was there, and singing, and Randy was playing, and the band was rehearsing a bit. And I noticed a cavalcade of vehicles coming around the area where we were. It was an outdoor fest.
And the snipers on the top of the roof.
Yeah, on the other side, I noticed guys closing in. I figured, what's going on here? Little did I know Bill Clinton was in one of those cars. Needless to say, he comes by. Colin has already finished the sound check. He comes on the other side of the gate. He says to me, what's going on here? I said, I have no idea. But I said, see over here, it looks like Bill Clinton. He said, it is Bill Clinton. So as he's walking by, I yell out, hey, Bill, you want to play sax tonight in the band? He looks over. He says, I'd love to, but I don't have a sax. I said, well, we could get you a sax. He says, well, right now, boys, I'm down the way. I'm going to be flipping some burgers. Why don't you come down? And he says, I'll make you a burger. So Colin and I went and got Randy, and we all went down there, and we were in the line.
Gone, by the time we got there.
Yeah, but we thought, lo and behold, we're screwed. But then we see another line and a security and that, and I go up and I say, excuse me, the president invited us for a burger. Randy Bachman, Colin, myself. Guy goes right this way. He fires us in front of everybody who's waiting for burgers. We go, excuse me. We got to get back to the stage, show business talk stage behind us. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then he turns around, boys, what's doing? Hey, how you guys doing? I said, Randy Bachman, Bill Clinton, blah, blah. We do it all, get our burgers, leave, and we go back. And that's our Bill Clinton, Randy Bachman story.
And we were on the Rare Earth was on that bill as well.
That's true.
And what's the other band? I think it was Two Dog Night.
Yeah, it could have been Two Dog Night. You're right.
It could have been. But,
oh yeah, well we did Three Dog Night. Remember we did the who was it? It was when we did the Daytona 500. Who was the singer? He was from Three Dog Night, right? He wrote a book. He wrote a book, and you got one from him. What was the guy?
Three Dog Nightmare was the name.
Yeah.
And
anyways, that was then.
Christopher Knight was just asking a question, saying, "What was the real reason that the Beatles broke up?"
The real reason? I don't really know, because Ringo never ever mentioned them. I had the fortune of seeing Sean and Yoko backstage in Toronto, in New York at Radio City Music Hall, along with Casey from the Sunshine Band, Paul Schaefer from Letterman. But Ringo never ever spoke, and myself, I never really pursued finding out why. I mean, it happened. They did their rooftop. They did everything. Some want to blame it on Yoko. Some want to blame it on each and every one. That's not an issue. It's happened. It's over. But the greatest band of all time. I mean, I had the fortune of doing Ringo not once but twice. So, I mean, not too many people can say a kid from North End, Winnipeg, starting in the business at age 14, would end up touring with a Beatle and the Stones. So I've been pretty fortunate and thankful.
It was Chuck Negron.
That's it.
The lead singer for
that's right.
Three Dog Night.
That's right. You're right, 100%. And Cheap Trick was good, as we mentioned in a previous broadcast. We had a tremendous rapport with them. We've had a lot of Gary Puckett and the Union Gap on the waterfront there when we were doing those shows. All that stuff was really good. We had some tremendous tours that we put together, and we're fortunate to go out on together. And you sing.
So you have a few more of those passes there. Just
passes,
because some of them have got a picture of you when you were younger, and it's pretty hilarious looking.
Way back when. I mean, we can start off with a simple one. This is a simple one. This was the Dirty Dancing tour, and that was me way back in the 90s when the hair was black and not gray. The beard was black, starting to gray, much lighter look. And that was when Bill Medley, Eric Carmen, Ronnie Spector, the Contours, and the Dirty Dancers. And we did 43 nights in America at all the casinos. And at one of the casinos, Chuck Norris came.
Oh.
And I met him backstage. I'll show the fans sometime a photo to coincide with the passes. And then as we go over the years, of course, another legendary.
Oh, that's a Ringo pass.
Yeah, that's the Ringo Starr and the Allstar Band, the one that I was talking about, the 3 drummers. Amazing. Pepsi was the sponsor, needless to say. And those days are gone. You know, the days of that full talented
touring entourage. Yeah, it's so expensive now.
It's gone. I can remember doing like Little Richard on a one-off that we spoke about earlier, and the entourage was like 20 people. For what? For what? You had a manager and a wardrobe person, fine. That's all you need, and the artist. And the band, of course. You don't need 15 other guys there. But
what were those guys doing there?
Nothing. Taking up space, getting in the way, or he needs this, or he needs that. Well, you could, you know, you don't have to have 15 people relaying the message. You don't need 15 messengers. One is fine. Well, and this is, remember, you got to remember, this is texting was in its early stages, phones like what we have now, the technology, what we're doing now, none of this was perceived, couldn't possibly be. So you winged it, but you couldn't afford to make
any walkie-talkies. That's what you had.
That's right. You had walkie-talkies, and batteries could go dead. A funny story I can tell our fans. I'm doing Julio Iglesias at the Pacific National Exhibition here. I'm the promoter's representative. There's a sound check where they check the mics and the voice and get everything. And then he goes away, and then he comes back for the show. In the meantime, the rule of thumb is after the artist has sound checked his mic, you mark it, you pull it off to the side. Prior to the show, you should do a battery check and make sure. But the rule of thumb is usually once that artist leaves the stage after the sound check, you automatically change the batteries and have a fresh set of batteries in the microphone. Well, this gentleman, the gentleman in question, didn't do that, okay? So what happened was the mic gets placed back in the cradle. He forgets to shut it off. He drains the batteries. When he goes to turn it on and the DJ says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an evening of none other than Julio Iglesias," and the mic is handed to him by this technician, and he walks out of the wing and the spotlight picks him up and he goes and to say good evening, and he goes like good, and that's it. There's nothing, only his voice, and he's partially said a word, realizes trouble, turns around, walks back. By this time, the guy realizes his mistake. They have a backup mic, of course. They quickly hand him the backup mic, make sure it's audible, give it to him, and out he goes. Meanwhile, all during the show, this audio guy's off his game because he realizes he's made a mistake to a very powerful artist. So at the end of the show, it's customary that the artist walks off and hands the technician the mic, at which point Julio says, "Here you are, sir." And he says, "Thank you. I'm sorry." He apologizes for what happened. He says, "Absolutely no problem." He says, "I can guarantee you it will never happen again. You're fired." All in the same breath, praising him and firing him at the same time. And this guy was so out of it that he just looks at him and he says, "Well, you know, stuff happens. And I guess if that's what it is, that's what it is. I'll just tear down my stuff and go." And at that point, they had to replace him, obviously. The sound company has to take him out of the tour, put another guy in to work with the artist. But that's a true story.
I remember when Julio was recording at Little Mountain Sound in Vancouver.
Right.
And one of the guys on the session was telling us a few stories that he's deadly afraid. Now, this is secondhand information, so I can't
Sure.
verify it.
No.
But he was saying that he's afraid of snakes. So there can't be any cords or anything lying around that looks like a snake because
Right.
Julio's afraid of that, and he doesn't take elevators. So anyway, some of the guys were having a laugh and making hissing noises when he would walk in. He would,
Oh no, terrible! That's really bad.
and,
That's gotta
well,
put
you know,
you-
guys in the studio, they don't care who's in.
Of course, but that'll put you off your game. Definitely put you off your game, my friend.
But
There we go.
there's
Chuck Norris. He likes to dish it out. He's a powerful guy.
Well,
Einstein's
that's
fine.
a reminder. We've got to get Garnet. We almost went over time, and we need to get Garnet on here to talk a little bit about
let's get him
Starwire
on.
and about what we're doing.
Great.
Marty,
We
it's
love
always
Garnet.
fun to tell these stories, and
I love it. I love you both.
any more questions that can come in from folks, we can maybe wrap up with a couple more stories at the end. But in the meantime, let's turn it over to Garnet, and he's going to give us an update on Starwire.
Yeah, let's hear
Yeah,
all
well,
of it.
I wanted to hear. Yeah, I wanted to hear more about Chuck Norris because, you know, I'm such a big fan. He was the tough guy, right?
Definitely the tough guy.
Like
But he
they
was
didn't have
such a cool
MMA
guy.
back in those days.
Yeah.
Chuck was the MMA.
He was such a cool guy. I mean, you know, sport jacket, pink jersey, pair of jeans, deadly. I mean, he could take you out in one shot. But the nicest guy in the world. I mean, tremendous man. He was just in Vegas when we were there, and he happened to show up at the show. And you know, I introduced him to Bill Medley from the Righteous Brothers. I introduced him to the Contours, Do You Love Me, Eric Carmen, and Ronnie Spector. He was blown away, as were they. They were blown away because quite often artists love to meet personalities that are from the movies and that, or comedy shows and that. And Chuck was like the Bruce Lee, right? Icon. And they just went crazy when they saw him. And he,
Speaking of, go ahead.
No, go. You.
Speaking of action heroes, it just pinged a memory of us hanging out with Bruce Willis at the opening of Planet Hollywood.
That's right.
And I remember they were supposed to pick us up in a limousine, which was cool.
That's right.
And when they picked us up, I'd never seen a stretch Escalade before. Coming from Canada, I'd never seen anything like that. I couldn't believe it.
Like Escalade stretch.
It was
You're
like
right.
3 blocks long.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
we showed up and walked down the red carpet at the Planet Hollywood.
Yeah.
And sure enough, a little jamming with Bruce Willis, who plays
Right.
the harmonica.
That's right.
And-
But remember when it was our turn to play, and you pointed out to Randy, there's a special guest in the house, Bruce Willis from the movies, and he's also a musician.
Plays the harmonica.
And he plays the harmonica. So maybe, just maybe, when we do business, you'll invite him up. And you did. You brought him up, and he shared the stage with you guys. And I'm 99.999 positive that I have the footage.
Oh,
Okay,
I've
we
got
gotta
the
see
photo
that.
of us having a pizza afterwards. They had
Oh,
this
yeah. Yeah,
a little private wooden deck out the back.
that's right.
And we sat out there with them, and
Yeah.
they gave us a pizza after the gig.
Yeah.
And that brings back Office Depot memories as well with Hank
Well-
Williams Jr. and all those guys.
Well,
Anyway,
every story has got memories that trigger more memories because, you know, there's so much to talk about. But let's give
That's-
Garnet.
Well, yeah, no. Hey, if we get Bruce Willis on Startalk, that would be amazing. Because, well, it is. See, when you bring that up, right? So music and movies go together.
Yeah, I agree.
And the stars from the music industry admire the movie stars.
Absolutely. Garnet-
Sometimes you get the crossovers. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Usually, if you're a musician, you're allowed to cross over to become a movie star.
Right.
If you're a movie star, it's harder.
To cross
to-
into the other
Yeah.
side, because you'd be
Who-
yeah,
who
like
did that?
Kevin Bacon, he's
Kevin
done that.
Bacon.
Yeah.
what's his name? The guy that was it Dennis Quaid that did the Jerry Lee Lewis?
Yeah.
Was it Quaid that did that?
Yeah. Dennis Quaid did that.
He portrayed Jerry Lee. And what about Gary Busey, who did
Buddy Holly?
Buddy Holly.
Well, he played Buddy Holly in the movies. I don't think he did a
Right.
band thing after that.
Or what was the guy that did Richie Valens in La Bamba?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I mean, part of the reason I bring that up is
Emilio Estevez.
No.
The educational. We want one portion of our show. We're mostly telling kind of entertainment stories, but the educational side, where we get to talk about Starwire, just for a moment, is the idea that Starwire is a token that represents both the music side and the movie side together. And the one thing, I guess I'll share my screen with you guys. One thing I wanted to share with us tonight was this idea of the latest thing we've been working on at Starwire. Now I'm on a website here, which is called OpenSea.io. And for anyone watching our show, maybe you're not familiar with this term, like Colin had been talking a couple times, mentioned NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. And this is an example of one of our Starwire NFTs. And obviously someone has already purchased this. And I think when I looked at this, you can, part of the interesting thing about NFTs is as a collectible, what's important is sort of the journey that collectible has taken. It's kind of makes it even more valuable. And even this one, which is a brand new token, I'm not sure whoever bought this, we don't know, but it's already been transferred, or I guess bought. Yeah, I guess it was minted 17 days ago, and someone traded it, gave it away. Maybe they sold it or something like that. But that's part of what you can see on the blockchain. Now, traditionally, up until now, there's thousands and thousands of these NFTs in OpenSea. It's a marketplace where it's one of the largest, NFT marketplaces, where mostly art-based tokens are sold. So with Starwire, we had, put an additional, modification to these art-based cards. And what you can see down here in the metadata is that this is an asset-backed card, meaning there's Starr tokens and Ethereum tokens embedded into this collectible card. So not only is it an awesome card, the artist, his name is Greg Mitchell. He's kind of worked on Disney projects and just a number of other things. He created this piece of artwork for us. But for the first time, we think it's kind of brand new in the whole NFT space, is being able to embed, crypto assets inside of this card. Now, I happen to know this is a gold card, you can tell, which means it was purchased for over $5,000. So what's cool about it is we can see it's been staked for a year. So as a financial asset, this person purchased this card. It's being staked for a year. After that, it's unlocked. But during that time, this
Can you
asset
explain, Garnet, what staking means for some folks that
I mean,
quite familiar with that?
If you're familiar with your bank account, maybe it's like a long-term savings account, something like that, where you have
term deposit or a bond.
Yeah, sure, exactly like that. So imagine a term deposit, but the idea that hey, if circumstances change and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I want to get rid of this, you're able to sell it and move it to another person or gift it to someone else. And part of what began happening in what we call decentralized finance in crypto was typically people would buy a crypto asset like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and they would hold it. And of course, Bitcoin, we know it's been one of the best performing assets for the last 5 years. The value goes up.
Mm-hmm.
But one additional thing that recently developed over the past couple years in the crypto eco space was something called liquidity mining or liquidity farming. So we've heard of the term Bitcoin mining for Bitcoin. And those are people who would maybe use their computer to be a part of the Bitcoin network. When someone transfers funds, their computer is used to solve an equation and be part of that network.
Wow.
And in return, they earned coins, right? But Bitcoin farming was a term like this, a reward that was given when you staked your crypto. So it was another way to earn money and leverage your money while it was being saved. And with Starwire, what we did with these, the incentive is if you stake, if you buy 50% ETH, 50% of our own Starr token, typically to farm a token, you would have to wait for the entire year. You would slowly farm it out and you would earn rewards, which is great. That's how bank interest works. Month by month, you get paid your interest or whatever. But what we decided to do was called a flash yield. So rather than wait until the end of the harvest, we reward you at the beginning. When you stake your funds, plant those seeds, it's like we reward you with a 30% flash yield. So you have your token, which is awesome. It's a collector's item. You have your assets that are back that are growing in value, and you have a flash yield. It's like get in the harvest the second you plant the field. How many would like to be a farmer like that?
Yeah.
30%. That's great. I mean, who wouldn't want that right up front?
So maybe you're watching this and you're going, man, I've never heard of an NFT before.
Yep.
I've never heard of, that you could farm crypto tokens. I've heard of crypto mining. I didn't even know you could do this.
Wow.
If you have any questions like this, on the back of this card, you can see there's a group called Bees Social.
Bees Social. I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So what they are, bees.social, that's their website right there. And the bees.social, they're bees there for your education. And if you say, I don't have a clue what you're talking about, Garnet. And it's like, but it does sound really interesting. Where can I learn more? And that's exactly where you'll go. Bees.social. I think their address is right in the video description. You can go there any time of day. There's bees there that will answer your questions. Whatever
They've got
question
some
you
great
have.
people, some really good people that will answer your questions, and they're very, very helpful. I know that they helped me and they helped my daughters when they were learning about crypto and buying stuff. So these guys are super helpful, patient, and bees.social is really a valuable place to hang out.
That's your educational moment for all you people out there. And it's like, hope you enjoyed that. And if you feel like, whoa, that's like a lot of information, don't worry about it. It's like little by little. And it does come back to what we're doing is offering solutions to musicians. We started the show talking about how musicians sort of ripped off with their music. And part of the whole reason why Colin started Starwire was to actually help artists and be a resource so that when you write those great songs, when you start your band, when you're selling merchandise, you have tools to empower you for the success. in your careers. Yeah.
We sure wish back in those days, Marty, we had some tools like that. But
Yeah,
I
well,
think
we had opportunities. We were always thinking, what about the giveaway to the fans? Maybe Garnet can get a draw going, and you can give away your giveaways.
oh,
Yeah.
I forgot about
Colin,
that.
tell-
I'm still at my new place, so I need to get over to my storage garage because I've got a real treat, which I think I'll save for next week,
Absolutely.
which is a very rare item. But a lot of people I know don't really have CD players or DVD players anymore, but these are still collectible. And this one I'm very proud of. This is a live show I did at Blue Frog,
Right.
and with a 6-piece band, female vocalists and whatnot. And it's got 2 hours worth of songs and music
Good
on
value
it.
there.
I tell a lot of stories, and it's one of my favorite things that I've done in my entire life. And that's called Live in Concert, an evening of stories and songs.
Yep.
And this is my brand new record, which has just been released. You can find it on Spotify if you Google my name. But it's called Front Row Seat.
There you are.
And this is a brand new record. And it's the same kind of classic rock, kind of little bit of jazz, a little bit of country, what I like. So anyway, I'm happy to do a draw tonight and give these both away. And I'll
Sure.
sign them both if you want, or I can keep them sealed,
Exactly.
whichever you prefer.
And make sure you give Garnet your address so we can mail these things out. Previous winners as well as all winners on the show, we should get your address, a mailing address as well.
All right. So you're going to do your little random
Okay.
thing?
Yeah, I am. It's offline here.
Okay.
I'm just running it now. So everyone who's left a comment in, it's your
Okay.
last chance to get a comment in. I'm going to enter your name and okay, I'm just run it here. Trying to share this, but okay, here we go. All comments in.
Comment?
And it is Christopher.
Yeah.
Christopher, congratulations.
All right.
Good man, Chris.
Christopher is the man. He was complaining.
What was his complaint?
I bet you he's got a CD player.
He must be the luckiest guy because
What?
his name came up last week on my test. Maybe it's the name Christopher is like a magnet to this.
That's
So what-
exciting. I think Christopher will actually have a DVD player and a CD player.
Oh, I'm sure he does. No more listeners wanting any questions to both Colin and myself, or have we ran our race for this week?
Well, we want to just keep it to an hour, and we're 3 minutes past.
That's fine.
So really happy to have you on again tonight,
Always.
Marty. It's always fun hanging out and chatting.
Oh yeah, you guys are the greatest.
Some of the
Love
best stories happen before we actually go on air. So
Well, the thing is, you got to warm up, but you can always pry them out of me. I mean,
yeah.
your ear, it's for your ears only initially, and then for our listeners. So it's all about that. And you got to remember too, I got to protect myself, and I can't really tell a lot of it because I'm telling 330 pages in a book called Kramer. So if I tell,
Well, let's mention that here at the end because Marty's not only got a book coming out, but you starred in a show called Almost Famous.
and also another one called Get Marty, and they're quite interesting. And now, completely off topic, I'm going to be doing a reality thing with the Animal Planet, and I'm going to be this go-to guy on collectibles and everything, like Garnet mentioned, with the cryptocurrency and everything like that. What's going on? I'm going to be doing stuff with rare and obscure stuff, and there's going to be like 12 episodes, and that's from the producers of Rust Valley Restorers. They're solid with Netflix, but Animal Planet came as well looking, and we did a trailer, and we were accepted. So I'm very happy that we can announce this on our show here and share it with our listeners. And at some point, they'll be able to view that as they're viewing us now.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to your book coming out, and when it is out, we'll be giving that away on the show.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
for those of you
And
that
your-
haven't
and
seen
your
Almost
next
Almost
guest.
Famous, what's
Your
that, Garnet?
next get all these guests you got coming for us.
Well, you see, the thing is this: as we all discuss pre-production meeting prior to you listeners hearing us live telling stories, we do a bit of a chat. We have a chat room between Colin, myself, and Garnet, and we pre-discuss a lot of the stuff, and then we connect the dots. So when we tell you stories pertaining to other people, we want to try and bring those other people in and hear more stories from them, from the personality aspect, from the star aspect, from the actors aspect, from the musicians aspect, as well as be able to talk about Garnet's.
But this is only the second show. We have to
yeah,
give them
so we
some
have to
lead
get-
time, so we have to calendar them out because they're
we have to
a lot of
find
them are busy
people.
people.
Summer holidays, COVID, but of course with technology and Garnet's finesse, I'm sure we'll be able to hook somebody up, get one more person on this screen, whether it's to the right of us, to the left of us, whatever, so that you people can see a real star, a movie star or an artist. So, you know, don't hesitate to contact the show and send in your requests, because some of them may be easier than others. I mean, the bigger names, obviously, like Colin said, pending availability, and are contacting them. And, you know, now's the time. We'll do our best. We'll try and fulfill all requests, as well as many as are still above ground, so that we can carry on.
Maybe even a what do you call it? Unplugged concert with maybe not a whole concert, but at least
No, I think you've got to
a
do
jam session.
a jam
some of these
session would be
guys.
good. The club,
Yeah, like-
the club car footage on the Festival Express with Buddy Guy and Leslie West and Delaney and Bonnie and Jerry Garcia and stuff like that, with the time running on it, which I got from Corky Lang from Mountain, who I used to manage. He's the drummer and also the president of the Toronto Musicians Union, good friend. And something like that from the Festival Express era.
yeah, or like we'll digitize some of that never seen before
Well,
footage.
exactly. We've got to. There's another one, like we talked about Creedence today. Colin was with me when we were on the road, and we used to do all these.
Oh yeah, we can play them as we
Thrift-
go up. I
thrift
got
stores.
the video ready.
Yeah, we used to do thrift stores and flea markets. And I came across a guy in those days dating ourselves VHS, and he says to me, I says, "Do you have any music DVDs?" He says, "Yeah." As a matter of fact, he says, "I've got one." He says, "It's Creedence Clearwater." I says, "Oh." I said, "Where'd you get that?" He said, "Well, I was the producer. I produced this show at Oakland, at the Oakland Coliseum." So I said, "Really?" I said, "I've never seen it." He says, "Well, it was made for TV, but something happened with the licensing and the feud with Zance and all this and that to coincide with the stories we told earlier today. So he says, we shot it. And then there's spaces in the movie for commercials. Insert commercial here, insert commercial there. And it's actually the backstage footage, them on stage, doing all the hits. And the surprise to me, which I had no idea and he didn't mention, was when I plugged it in, I see this band jamming and I hear all this noise prior to them zooming in on Creedence, and it's none other than Booker T and the MGs who were opening for Creedence.
Wow.
So that's like a lead-in footage bonus coming
Anybody
into
in
it.
chat remember the big song by Booker T and the MGs? It's dating everyone. It was called Green Onions.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you hear the song, you'll know it in a minute, but not a lot of people know that.
No, but we can use that. That's a perfect. The Green Onions, Colin, is like, you see, I really would love to do with you guys and the fans an Instrumentals Are Us show. I have 500 of the rarest instrumentals, probably 90% of them never ever heard, ever. ever. Not on Spotify. You won't find them. They're not on Discogs. They're on vinyl. And they've been in my personal collection. If we brought those out and started using those as themes for our intros and that, it would be unbelievable. Or anybody else that wants to listen. I mean, they're there. We could do a compilative CD of them and themes. Let's Talk Rock themes. And we could put it out.
Well, you'll find some of your best instrumentals and put 20 together, and we'll publish a.
Well, we'll have to discuss. We'll have to discuss how we can get it to Garnet and sync it so that he can put it in. You know, it would be nice if he could, off the top on the countdown, put it in, and then like you had, like you did, like when you did the tour bus thing, Colin, which was brilliant, and you had the intro. And now from a tour bus, and you had that professional person do that.
Guy,
yeah, with the voiceover. But in this case, we don't need to do any voiceovers. We can do the vinyl, what we're about, and our show is all about, and rare and obscure. You guys are definitely right. So we've got giveaways, we've got rare and obscure. Now we have to get the rare and obscure artistry before the rare and obscure artistry don't exist.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. Accessibility is the key word in the music business. Accessibility is the key. If you've got accessibility, we can put anybody on this show with us. All it is a phone call away. And if I could procure all the artists for the Ringo Starr and the Allstar bands that Ringo requested, I think I could procure people, especially people who I've worked with in the past. It's just a matter of updating yourself and getting in touch. And
scheduling,
You got to get in sync again. You've got to reinvent yourself to them. And what have you got to offer them? And what we're offering them is an opportunity to be a part of us and get involved. And in turn, they can tell a story of their claim to fame. You know?
Well, that's fantastic, Marty. Thanks. And Garnet, did you want to say something before we wrap
up?
I
was just going to say, exactly what you're saying, Marty. What we offer them is they get immortalized through that collectible NFT that we're going to create.
Absolutely.
And
nobody else is offering that. And there's plenty of guys that would like to appear in the crypto age of cryptonism or whatever.
Yeah.
And
a token of respect. You heard it here first, folks.
Oh yeah, that was the good.
That was my first kick at the cat. I'm usually one of these crazy kind of guys. So I come up with all the different names. Colin's a tremendous guy at set lists. I'm a tremendous guy at different names and concepts. But we share the brackets, which we always have all our lives. We're both very, very good friends. Garnet's our newfound friend. Colin's known him longer than myself, but has proven in the last 2 episodes to be a guy that shoots from the hip, knows what he's talking about. And that's what it's all about. I mean, let's make it happen, guys. And I think we're on the road to a very enjoyable season. And we'll have some good people. Believe me, it's just a matter of lining up our ducks and getting them here. They'll be here. I mean, technology is such that we can put them here.
All right. Well, thanks, Marty. And thank you, Garnet. And
thank you.
I'm going to, I guess, Garnet, you have to be the one to sign off, right?
Yeah, we'll go out.